Yeah, I'm trying to scooch away from the camera.
Oh, sorry. I'm gonna move around. I'll try to stay around this area, but I am terribly bad.
Lori's gonna be.
Front and center.
So I think it would be how long you worked for the company, maybe just a little bit about you, maybe a fun fact or something like that. So let's start up here. You want to go for it first, Terry?
Oh, sure. My name is Terry Ellis. I've joined Jack White in 2014, right out of the gate. I got my license then, came out of retirement to do real estate, and it's a great company, and I've been having a good time.
Nice, thanks, Terry.
My name is George Hagedis. I just got my license like 2 months ago for the second time. And yeah, I just decided to get into real estate full time.
Do you paste him back?
Oh, I like cooking.
It's too
I would like to do what?
just to paste the link
Oh.
that I copied.
Command C, copy, Command C, space.
My name's Lauren Schellebacher. I just got my license and started with Jack White in February. Before this, I was working at a organic places the last 4 years. And
Oh, what
I
the place?
have a hospitality and restaurant management.
Cool.
Oasis.
I know, good thing.
I know. Kristen Talbert, my husband and I have been with Jack White for 3 years now, and I've been licensed for about 9 years. And I like to be outside.
Okay, Dan?
Dan Slavinsky, career broadcast guy. Been here about 7 months. Great company, and I cry on movies.
Same. Love that. Awesome. I love some vulnerability right out of the gate. Awesome.
Putting it all out there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, my name is Tony Maldonado. I started 2 weeks ago, just got my license yesterday. Yeah, thank you. Huge fan of Calvin and Hobbes, and I love to ride my bicycle.
All right. Perfect. Carmen?
I'm gonna stand up because I haven't met most of you before. I'm licensed since last year, but I recently just switched over to Jack White a couple of weeks ago. Oh, I didn't tell you my name. My name's Carmen McQueen. I just switched over a couple of weeks ago to Jack White, but this is actually my first week because as soon as I switched, I went out of town. So I just got back, and I'm so stoked to be working with all of you guys. I like to hang out with my dogs, take them out on adventures.
All right. Perfect.
I'm Noemi Macias. I've been here since September, October last year. Fun fact, I'm doing this so I can get my husband to retire from the military in 2 years.
Laney?
Lanny Knoll, I've been with Jack White, 2 months now, 3 months. Just moved up here from Texas in December, so doing real estate back there, so.
Would never know from his accent. Welcome. Sherry?
I'm Sherry Boyd. I've been in the business 46 years.
Enjoy life. Enjoy life, yes. We're very honored to have Sherry in here today. She'll give us lots of good insight, I'm sure, help with this class.
I'm Gabrielle Smith. I got started in December, but it was like Christmas, so I don't really count until January. I like to hang out with my dogs in my spare time as well. I have 1 dog, 1 cat, and I like to take them out and go hiking and stuff.
Please, Gabby. Scott?
I'll stand. I'm Scott Geyer. I have been with Jack White since last September. I'm enjoying it here. I have 2 boys going into college this fall. 3 semesters pretty soon. I worked for a federal government for 38 years, so I'm tired of doing this for fun.
All right, perfect. Bailey?
I'm Bailey. I've been here for 2.5 years, and I like to fish.
Dan, you have wiener dogs that you love.
I have 3 wiener dogs over my life. Yes.
Okay, Wilson?
My name is Wilson Rosario. I've been here since October, end of October, and I enjoy Jack White. They're pretty good with education and stuff like that, and I like to travel and work out.
My name's Neighbor Carey, and I've been here for a little over a year. I've been out down in Texas. My husband has cancer, unfortunately. We've been in Texas since last November. Now we're back. He's doing treatment. as far as hobbies go, that's my hobby, that's my life outside of this. And prior to this, I was the CEO of a native corporation for 25 years. And I retired, and then I was driving people crazy until they said, God, we could go do something please. So I took the class, and here I am. Fabulous.
And you like to decorate?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
staging.
staging and decorating is my zen. So if you need a stager, I'll do the first few freebies. So I can rope you all in. Come on and talk to me about staging. And my retail specialist can tell you how much stuff I have.
Some stuff, yes. Some stuff. All right. Hi guys, I'm Wendy Wolfong. I and Sherry also, and really enjoyed the career, but retired to raise my kids and moved to Eagle River. So in between there, I opened a retail store, became a licensed esthetician, had like a mini day spa, and did that for about 11 years. Retired from that career and decided to get back into real estate. And it was so welcoming to come back to Jack White. I have to tell you, for anyone who's new to this office, it's so encouraging. The training is top notch, and you won't find anywhere like it. Trust me. I went somewhere before I came here, and I regretted those few months. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, look forward to maybe some transactions with you guys and helping whoever.
Hi guys, my name's Zach Chico. I got my license back in April of this year. Graduated 20 with my bachelor's in marketing and minor real estate. You know, now that the pandemic's kind of slowing down, I figured might as well put that to use. And I like Marvel movies.
All right, cool. Oh, perfect. Well, thank you guys all for coming. We're gonna live stream this today. We are live streaming it today, so it'll be available with a link so you can look back and kind of refer it. So you'll hear me saying we're talking about Form 1, Form 2. So when the actual forms go out to you in the class, you'll be able to refer it, and so hopefully that'll make a lot of sense at the time. The first thing I want to talk about is what forms you need and where to find them. And so a lot of people, you're starting your new transaction and you know you got to put everything in SkySlope, but you're like, I don't even know which forms I need for what transactions. So we have a checklist in SkySlope. Some people know that, some people don't know that. So documents that you work with, you kind of think of it in that term. So if I'm looking for documents that I'm working with, I go to working documents. So you click on working documents. And then you see here you have personal documents and office documents. So if you click on the office documents, the very first one is checklist for sale and listing documents. So it's a Word document that you can print, and that's what you have there in the very beginning, form number 1 and 2 in your book. But forms 1 and 2 in your book are those. Oh, there's the bottom. So when you look at your book, or what says checklist for listing / lease. That's going to tell you everything that you need or you possibly need for a listing when you're doing a listing. Now, as you will see, the very first one where it says MLS private printout or input sheet required. So we have listed on each one of them what is required, and then if it says if applicable, then it depends if it's applicable for that specific transaction or not. So all the ones that say required, you need to definitely get those all signed for your listing. So take those with you to your listing appointment and make sure those are all filled out. Where it says exclusive right to sell, it must match the listing, and we're going to go over that when we go over the listing documents here in a minute. But waiver to right to be represented, That is, if you select that on the exclusive right to sell and you decide you will go, more neutral, then that is needed. If you're not doing neutral and you're merely representing the seller or the buyer, then you don't need that form, okay? Property disclosure, of course, that's always required for every transaction. Same with the Jack White affiliated business agreement. And then the lead-based paint, it says if built on or before 1978. So it's telling you right there when you need the form and when you don't need the form. So if the house is built in 80 or earlier, then you don't need it. Withdrawal, rejection, termination, and that's only if your listing is canceled do you need that form. And the cons, we just actually took those off, so you don't need the COVID forms anymore. And then when you look at form number 2, which is the checklist for residential, condo, multifamily sale, that's gonna kind of be the same. It's gonna kind of lay out which ones are required, which ones are not required. The one that's like number 4, if you're doing a non-MLS listing. So a non-MLS listing would be for like non-residential things. So if you're doing a commercial or something like that, or a mobile home, that's gonna be a non-MLS listing, purchase and sell agreement. Otherwise, you're most likely gonna be using the residential purchase and sell agreement, but in the event you're doing those two types of transaction, you would do the non-MLS. And that's when you just provide the muni tax record, because it's it's not an MLS listing. So if you don't have an MLS listing where you can't print the input sheet or print the private MLS sheet, an MLS, because it's not there, then you're going to need to provide the tax records so everyone knows, the legal description, the address, the bedrooms, bathrooms, owner, that type of thing. Okay. Of course, we have to have an AREC always. Waiver to right to be represented. That's we just talked about that. If it's a neutral, you have to have your purchase and sale agreement, and you have to have a counter. Now this is important. So if you have a purchase and sale agreement and it says the seller signed where it says counter to be provided, you have to have a counter. If it says they're accepting as is, then obviously there's not going to be a counter, and you shouldn't have a counter. So if there's a change in that contract, some people get confused on a counter and an amendment. You cannot have an amendment for a contract that's not already fully executed, okay? So if you're changing, always use a counter to change that verbiage until it's fully signed off. When it's fully signed off, then you would use an amendment or an addendum. Does that make sense? Let's see. Addendums, we just talked about that. Brokerage fee disclosure statement, that's only if it's a relo. So it says notify relo and send purchase and sale agreement. So if you get a referral or where you have to pay a relocation department like a referral fee, then at that point you fill out that form. Let's see. Disclosure conflict of interest, that's obviously if there's a conflict you would need. So like a conflict of disclosure of interest would be an example of if you're selling your own home, that type of thing, or you're selling a family member's home, you would fill out that form and you would designate that. We talked about lead-based paint. We talked about the property inspection recommendation. It says right there, that's a Jack White form. The FHA, if it's FHA or VA. So it kind of like tells you when it's needed and when it's not needed. Any property that you have tenants in, the tenant is present and is going to be present at closing, you need an estoppel agreement for that. If it says in MLS that there's tenants present, so when we review your documents in SkySlope and we look at the listing agreement that you have in there, the input sheet that's in MLS. If it says tenants present, then Cheryl is going to say, I need estoppels. So if it says in there tenants present, you probably want to put where it says estoppels, tenants are vacating prior to closing. So she knows you don't need an estoppel, they're not staying. So little things like that I wanted to kind of like tell you about with this form. Let's see what other. If it says that there's home, then the B's rating, the PUR, Bees rating is going to be requested. Because it says it's an energy rated home, it needs to, you need the document to prove that. Let's see, home warranty, you always want to do the home warranty, either they signed a waive it or they're accepting it. That helps you with your E&O if you ever get in trouble. You need documentation that you presented that HSA warranty to someone. They don't have to get it, but you need documentation that you presented it. And that's the best way to get that. We always need a termination, and then a commission letter. You have to fill that out for each transaction as well. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview. We're going to go through a lot of these forms in depth, but I just wanted to kind of give you a highlight of this form, where to find it, and know that the best thing for you to do, I mean, now you have it printed, so whenever you get ready to do a transaction, you want to refer to this form and make sure you have all the documents that you need signed in the beginning, so you don't have to go back to a buyer, go back to a seller to get those documents. Okay, let's go to Form 3. Let's talk about exclusive right to sell agreement. So in your exclusive right to sell agreement, I think coming soon, delayed marketing, all that is like some of the most confusing pieces of real estate right now. I have more questions about that than pretty much anything. So that's why I wanted to kind of go over that today. So exclusive right to sell, you are begin seller grants Jack White Real Estate and a designated licensee, which of course is you, on whatever date is here to sell or exchange real property. Once you put the date in here, this date that you put in this blank, you have to input this listing. If it is going to go live into MLS, you have to input this listing within 3 days of this date. So
If it's going live.
if it's going live, we'll discuss the other options as well. But if it's going live, you always have to put it in within 3 days. So if we go to the next one, you're seeing the address and legal description. Seller hereby has to check one of these boxes below, A through D. So if they choose A, then that's easy. They commence marketing, showing, publication in MLS. You put it in MLS within 3 days of them signing this document. The input, all the information.
Days, business days, what?
3 days.
Calendar days.
Yes. The next one is another option. You can authorize a broker to commence marketing in coming soon status in MLS prior to actively showing the property. So if you put it in coming soon, can you market the property?
Yes, but not
Yes.
show.
Correct. You can market it, but you cannot show it. Okay? But you do have the right to market it. What would be a proper way of marketing it?
People to use their photos on MLS.
Mhm.
How
You
long
have
are
to
you allowed
put-
to do coming soon for?
We're going to go into all that. We're going to go step by step here. So you can do the coming soon. You have to put at least one photo in when you do coming soon, or you could say the coming soon photo. But I think if you're going to market it, you have the ability to market, you should put as many photos as you can in there. If it's ready to put those in. Sometimes it's not ready. That's why you do coming soon, because it's not ready for photos or whatever. But as much as you can show people and get them excited about the property that's going to be hitting the market within 15 days, important number, then the better to kind of get the buzz. I mean, that's the whole point of coming soon, is to kind of get the buzz going to get people excited about the house before you make it available for showings. In my opinion, when you do a coming soon, you should put flyers in a flyer box. It should say coming soon, available for showings on this specific date. That way people understand and they're not mad. People get really upset when they go to see a property, they pull the flyer, they call you and they go, I want to see this property. No, sorry, you can't see it. What do you mean I can't see it? Well, it's coming soon. We can't show it till whatever. Then they just get irritated. So if you give them the information up front, they know when it's going to be coming on the market. I think that's really important. And then the next option, authorize the broker to delay marketing, showing, publication of the property until a specific date. The purpose is to enable the seller to do whatever they're going to do. So they're going to clean, they're going to get the house ready. That's all you really have to say, is get the property ready for market. you don't have to say, you know, be super specific. You don't have to say painting 3 walls or whatever. You can just say getting the house ready. Coming soon status in Alaska MLS may commence 15 days prior to the above date. So you cannot put this date more than 15 days past the date that you are listing it. It cannot be coming soon more than 15 days. If it is, then it needs to be delayed marketing, not coming soon.
So when you're putting the dates up at the top, is that property is going active unless it was just straight up going active right away?
This is the active date.
That it's actually going
Correct.
on the market?
Correct.
Okay.
Because
So-
that starts the contract. That date and the signature of the seller commences the contract. And then that date also dictates the rest. So that date will dictate, you know, 15 days, you know, later, 14 days later, 7 days later, 30 days later. So it's all based on that date at the top. Yes.
When do you choose an option C? When do you actually choose that? Because you can't market if you choose that property, right? It says authorized to delay marketing. So are you marketing in that?
No, you are delaying the market. You're delaying the showing.
Okay.
But not the publication. I mean, you're publicizing it,
Right.
but you're not showing, it's going and coming soon.
Okay.
So
I'm just trying to
it's fine.
understand the full difference between B and C, like why I would check off C instead of B.
If you are delaying the market, you're doing a delayed marketing, you're gonna do C.
Okay.
If you are, it says right here, if option C is selected, Alaska delayed marketing notice is required. If D is selected, Alaska non-MLS is required. So if you're doing coming soon, then you're gonna say B, commencing to do marketing and coming soon status. If it's past the 15 days, then you're gonna do C, and you're gonna also have to fill out the delayed marketing form.
So
Does that make sense?
the house isn't ready and isn't gonna be ready for more than 15 days, and that's when you would do C?
Delayed marketing, yes.
No, that sentence just said that you could do like coming soon stuff 15 days prior.
15 days, that's it.
So what
So
about
if we
C? How
go-
many days is C?
So let's go to the next form, and I will really help you. So the next form, number 4, if you look at that one, this graph I think really helps you understand what needs to be done. This one right here. So on the left, if it's ready to go to market, ready for market immediately, you entered into MLS in active status within 3 days of listing. Simple. If you're delayed marketing listings, so either you're delaying the marketing because you're gonna be coming soon, or you're gonna be past the coming soon date. 15 days. So, ready, but will be ready within 15 days of list date. You entered into MLS in coming soon status with a start showing date, no more than 15 days. So the start showing date, no more than 15 days. And then from your input, from inputting it into MLS. So that does not require a delayed marketing form. Now with marketing outside of MLS, so yard sign, Facebook, are not allowed prior to entry of property and coming soon or active. So you are not allowed to, wait, outside of the MLS, are not allowed prior to entry of property. So it has to be, this thing's, it's like a double negative the way they wrote this. But essentially, if you have it in active status or coming soon status, you're able to put a sign. You can say it's coming soon in Facebook. You can, no showings are allowed in coming soon or delayed, either one, no showings. And then if you have it non-MLS, so if you're not ready, so the next little column over, not ready, will not be ready until after 15 days of listing date, which is the date at the top, the listing date. Then you have the seller and broker. So seller and broker, so that would be me or Gabe, can sign those forms, either one of us. You can send it to us DigiSign or whatever. You don't have to come in here and have us sign it. But we have to have that delayed marketing form signed, submitted to MLS within 3 days of the date. So 15 days prior to showing day, you can do it in coming soon if you want as well. So say you're going to delay the marketing for 30 days. 15 days prior to it going, but you can. And you could just wait and make it live at the end of the 30 days. Totally your choice. But you could also like piggyback the coming soon on there at the 15 days prior to it going live or showing your showing day.
So is there any limit on, is it a 30-day limit you can do delayed marketing?
There's no limit.
There's
You can
no
do
limit.
whatever you want.
And if you put a date down, like in coming soon, all of a sudden. the
We're going to
seller
talk
says,
about that.
Okay,
That's next. What happens when coming soon doesn't happen or it's not quite ready still, what your options are. So we're going to talk about that next.
Gene, I think you wanna make sure that they understand that the broker has to sign both the coming soon and the delayed marketing forms. Because the MLS requires that to be sent in to the audit, they audit those listings,
Mhm.
they wanna see that the broker has signed. And also, they used to find, I don't know if they're still doing it, if you don't put a coming soon rider on your program. If you're in coming soon status, they used to find you if you didn't put coming soon.
I didn't see anything in the regulations where that was required, but I think you have to do something. You have to say either it has to be on a flyer in there or on the yard arm. It has to be very well documented at the property that it is coming soon. It can't look like MLS is gonna get called. You're absolutely 100% right. Because it looks like you're not doing coming soon. And the general public can't see that. Only licensees can see that. So that's where they don't know and they get super frustrated. So it needs to be documented. On the yard arm, like Sherry said, that it is coming soon. I think we have those. If not, you get them at MLS. And you can just buy a few and have them in your garage or whatever.
You order it when you're ordering the sign.
Yep, you can order it. They will charge you for that though, but you can do it that way as well. City Sign also charges extra for HSA riders on there now too. So you rent their signs. And so the next one is a non-MLS listing, which we don't do a lot of non-MLS listings. Once in a while you do those. But the really important thing about moving, and that doesn't work, you cannot put it in MLS for 6 months, 180 days. So you better be sure before you do that.
So like, why do they do it so long?
Because they don't want people trying to do a pocket listing and selling and then just putting it right back on the market. So they make it a pretty big time frame to where it's painful.
What are
When
some
you agree,
reasons though
that's-
that people would do non-MLS listings?
Maybe someone wants to sell it to a family member and they just have you helping them. Or, I don't know, what other example, Sherry, non-MLS?
Just trying to sell themselves.
Yeah, trying to sell it themselves. Yeah. Another one. Mhm. So they may be entered into MLS until after closing. So if you have a non-MLS listing and you close it, you can put it into MLS as stats only, but it has to be after closing. It cannot be while it's pending. So that's something else that you can do. Do we have any questions on that? I think that this like graph really helps to like lay it out to help you understand it. Depending on the situation that you're in, if everything's perfect and it goes according to plan and it's no more than 15 days and all that, then it works out. Yes.
I have a question about that first, kind of the double negative.
Yeah.
When you're in coming soon, it says you're not allowed to market it. So I guess I'm confused.
It's a double, you can. When it's coming soon, you can market it. You just can't.
Marketing is not allowed prior to entry.
But it's prior to.
prior to entry
Into the
into
MLS.
the MLS.
Not into the property.
So you can put it into MLS.
Yes, and you can
coming
market
soon,
it.
And you
Yep.
can market it.
Correct. You just cannot show it. You can't market it until you put it into MLS. So like, you're not, correct.
Okay.
Or
Show, I'm
soon.
sorry, I was thinking,
Showing.
saying show.
You can't, so like if you sign a listing, but you don't have it in MLS as coming soon, you cannot market it. It has to go into MLS as coming soon before you're allowed to market it. Does that make better sense? I know, it's not written very well. Okay, so the next one kind of lays it out again, to show you how it works. So when your seller signs a contract with you, the seller will have 4 choices to proceed. So they have the active, in MLS and everywhere else. Of course, it gets syndicated out everywhere. They could do delayed marketing, which the property won't be ready for any marketing or showing for more than 15 days. And then you will execute the delayed marketing form and forward that to MLS. No marketing, including, can be done prior to the input in MLS, either as active or coming soon. No showings allowed. Again, that's kind of a weird way of saying it, but saying you can't market it until you put it in MLS as active or coming soon. Coming soon listing up to 15 days prior to the property being ready to show and sell. The property can be entered into Flex MLS and coming soon status. These listings will be available for other licensees only. The listing licensee, once the coming soon listing is in Alaska MLS, may advertise as coming soon outside of Alaska on the yard sign, all of that. No showings are allowed during this coming soon period. Days on the market will not accrue while in coming soon status. So what that means is if you have it listed on May 1st, you have it coming soon till May 15th. May 16th, it goes on the market, it's going to show 0 days on the market. It's not going to be 15 days on the market. Yes.
For the part where it says you can market outside of the MLS for coming soon, does it have a photo? But I want to give the neighbors a sneak peek a week early with some flyers. Hey, pick your neighbors. Can I advertise photos in the neighborhood if they're not on my coming soon on the MLS?
Yeah. Yeah. You can advertise however you want to advertise.
But you have to say.
You have to say coming soon, 100%. Yes. And you have to say, and I would say coming soon, this is the date of showing to start on this date. And that way it's really clear.
If it's ready before that,
Yes.
before the 15 days.
We're gonna,
Sorry.
we have a form for that. You're going ahead and, but no, great questions. I mean, we're gonna cover those because that's definitely one of the big things that come up. So, let's see, where were we? The non-MLS. So the non-MLS, seller decides he does not want to market in Alaska MLS at all. The listing is immediately marketed on all platforms, but not in MLS. Should the seller decide to withhold the listing from MLS, the property may not be entered into MLS while listed with that particular licensee or 180 days, whichever is greater. Non-MLS listings may be entered into Alaska MLS after closing. So the seller's going to be, I mean, the seller can't switch realtors and put it in MLS right away either. So that's why they say whichever is greater. It has to be relisted or it has to be listed with the licensee or 180 days, whichever is greater.
So if a
So
realtor,
they would have to change realtors, essentially. They cannot be listed with you. If you and then they decided that they wanted it to go into MLS now. At first they said, I don't want an MLS, I just want to do for sale by owner, I'll put it in Facebook, try to sell it on my own or whatever. And then you're going to help them, with the transaction they find a buyer. Say they don't find a buyer. And then they want you to put it in MLS now. You can't do that for 6 months. They could get a different realtor, list with a different realtor and go into MLS right away, but not with you. So that's why you see that's a bad idea
Whichever
to
is
do.
greater.
With, it says listed, while listed with the licensee / team or 180 days, whichever is greater.
So they
Oh, well,
can-
okay,
Well,
so you could
listed
get a
with you.
different realtor and then no timeline doesn't apply. Gotcha.
Correct.
So they can list right away if they need realtors.
Can you get the
So-
referral fee for that? If they want to put it on the MLS and you're like, okay.
You really want to be careful about a non-MLS listing because you don't want to encourage them to list with somebody else, and you definitely don't want to wait 6 months. So just, you want to be careful about that. Just so you know what the rules are. So benefits for a licensee. More than often, your seller is not really ready to show and sign a contract to give them time frame to get the house ready. We see that all the time. Coming soons are seen by your peers, the peers with buyers waiting for the perfect property. So during the coming soon marketing period, you can generate your brand recognition through the for sale sign with the coming soon writer. So as Sherry said, the coming soon writer, Facebook postings, all while promoting your client's property. Clearly defining what is a delayed marketing listing and what is a non-MLS listing, as these are very difficult animals. So just make sure, does everyone understand the difference? Then delay and non-MLS. So non-MLS, can you market that in MLS? No. Delayed marketing. Can you market that in MLS? Delayed marketing. No, not until coming soon. So coming soon you can. And can you show coming soon or delayed marketing? No. Very good. Is that clear as mud? Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about it? Does the chart help? Okay. So the next form, the delayed marketing notice. So the delayed marketing notice, if you have a listing, so this is the form that you have to get filled out if it's going to be more than 15 days. This one, it's not on there just because it has to get signed. So make sure you send that out to us, either Gabe or I, if you're going to delay your marketing more. So you need the exclusive right to sell agreement filled out that says you're doing the delayed marketing, which is item number C. So that is filled out, and then this form goes along with it, so you can be able to let MLS know listing is signed, but you need to delay it more than 15 days. And then on here, it's going to say date listing is signed. It also says date listed in coming soon or date commence showings. So you don't have to put it in coming soon. You can just say date commence showings on the date you plan on, the 30 days or whatever it is. You don't have to do coming soon. But if you want to do coming soon, then you need to say, you have to change it in the status of coming soon. 15 days prior. So you know that. So the next one, the non-MLS listing. So the non-MLS listing can only be placed your property in the Alaska MLS database will you get this level of exposure of pitch flash. So they're trying to encourage you not to do a non-MLS listing at the beginning of this form and make sure that the seller absolutely knows the benefits of putting it in MLS and essentially trying to discourage them from doing that. But if they decide to do it, then it's just saying that the broker is required to submit property data to MLS within 3 days of the seller's signature of the listing agreement. Broker or licensee is not permitted to solicit or encourage seller to refuse to allow property data to be submitted in MLS. Seller hereby acknowledges that they've signed a listing contract with the broker and requests the property not be placed in MLS, very bold writing, They further acknowledge that while under the contract with this licensee, the property may not be entered into MLS for the duration of the contract or 180 days, whichever listing. And they say, well, the listings, I don't have the listing agreement anymore. They're still gonna say, and you try to relist it, they're gonna say the 180, no, it's gotta be 180 days, whichever is greater. So they're not allowing you to cancel the listing, relist it with the same person, same property to negate the 6 months. Does that make sense?
Why would someone want to use a realtor if they don't want to use the MLS?
Like Sherry said, they wanna try to do for sale by owner, they don't wanna pay a commission.
They know what they're selling to, like family members.
Exactly, they're selling to a family member or a friend or someone like that. And so they don't wanna put in MLS and solicit more offers and all that because they already plan to sell it to this person.
They might want to use a realtor selling it to their friend.
Correct.
You still get the commission.
Correct. But if you put it in MLS, remember you have to offer a commission to all participating members. So if whatever, but they would have to offer it to the other side a commission as well if you put it in MLS.
Okay.
So that's why they would do a non-MLS. Everybody understand that? Questions? Yes, Sherry.
But be also careful when you say realtors, because Alaska MLS is a member-only owned property, business. So there are realtors that are members and non-realtors that are licensees that are members. So don't just always say a realtor. You need to get in the habit of saying licensees.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They're not all realtors.
Yeah.
Just so.
Yeah. And, there's a few I know like the main brokerages, real estate brokers in Alaska, Rita, they're a non-realtor company. So no one at their office is a realtor. Let's see what else. So, and they've also, put here, seller acknowledges this will withhold property from all MLS marketing opportunities. So they want to be sure that the seller really understands what they're signing here. But they probably have a real good reason to do it. And like Sherry we just mentioned a few of them. And then this one also requires broker signature. So you have to make sure the broker is.
And along with a copy of the
exclusive right to sell that says it's a non-MLS listing. Item number D. Yes, sir.
But when we're looking at a lot of coming soon listings, many times you'll see P on there, and that means that in the coming soon status, someone has bought that property or be done sight unseen.
Yes.
And that's happening all over. And that's why when you see coming soon with the P, it means that you've turned in pending under coming soon status.
Right. Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up because you cannot show the property in coming soon, like we've talked about, but it doesn't mean you can't write an offer on it. And that's what, like Sherry just said, they'll write a sight unseen offer, and they'll write an offer saying this is sight unseen afterwards or whatever, or they'll just put their due diligence period in there, and they figure, hey, I'll just, I have my due diligence period. You can terminate at any point in time you want during your due diligence period. So they just figure, I don't like it. I'll just cancel during my due diligence period and get my earnest money back.
So is that a good practice as a listing agent to accept one of those offers?
It is not your decision to accept or decline an offer.
It's your decision
but
to
selling.
guide your client though. So
Yes.
is it?
Depends on the offer. It depends on the person. It depends on the situation. There's a lot that has to go into that. I would say probably if it's an investment property for them, they're not going to be as emotionally taxed because they're not actually going to be living there. If it's a great cash flow property, not a lot of things wrong with it, and you know that, then if it's a $1 million property and the person's never seen it before, and maybe you know that the pictures make it look way bigger and nicer than it really is, or you Photoshop some of the pictures, or maybe that's a different story. So you really have to kind of think about, and you need to ask a lot of questions. Like, have they driven by it? Are they familiar with the area? Do they live here? I mean, if there's someone coming from California, they know nothing about Alaska. This is a house up the top of the hillside, 4-wheel drive required. It's dark 10 months of the year, not really, but you know what I mean. But if those are the situations and they have no clue about that, maybe you might not want to do that. So you really have to kind of think it through, know who, but also ask a lot of questions about that's never lived in a cold environment, maybe wouldn't be totally fine with living up on top of the hill with a 4-wheel drive.
Wait, I have,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry. I actually have clients from California who bought the last house before you go into the flat top parking lot, up at the top.
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah.
I mean, they were here obviously, but
Yeah.
so I just thought maybe that actually
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, it does. And so you have to be careful not to, you can't judge a person based on a few statements and guide your seller that way. You have to be really careful of that because we don't know. You don't know that person. If they write an offer, they obviously have interest in it. But I would ask a lot of questions, and then you just present that information to your seller, and your seller has to make the decision that they feel is correct. You may want to ask for, non-refundable earnest money. There's a lot of ways to do it if you really want to accept it. Yes, yeah.
Also, the buyer's rep in that situation, they should put it in the cover email. Like, I have clients in Korea, Montana, military. Every time it's gonna offer, hey, this is a military family. They've purchased sight unseen twice in the past as part of the lifestyle. They're comfortable and they're familiar with it. And just the buyer's realtor should give all the information in that cover email to help the seller. So they don't have to call and ask a bunch of questions, because if they have 10 offers, they're not gonna wanna call and bug you. So
yeah,
the buyer's realtor should be providing that without being asked.
It sounds.
Not everybody's as good as you.
It sounds like what Sherry's describing is like an option agreement. Is there option forms that they could sign out that we could actually have contractually signed for whatever pending agreement for earnest money and stuff like that? Is there some sort of option agreement that's actually contractually signed?
So you address that in your purchases. A lot of different clauses that you can use, you can modify, that type of thing. And you just have to think about, like, if you are a buyer, if you're representing a buyer and you're going to be writing an offer for a sight unseen that's coming soon, then you just need to give your buyer a lot of advice. You need to say, are you sure this is something you want to do? You just want to try to encourage them not to be callous about it. And say, hey, well, I don't really care. I think this house will be okay. I'm going to just write an offer because I want to tie it up now. And then they have every intent in getting out of it in the next, 2 weeks if they don't absolutely love it. I mean, that is not really you want to really advise your buyer. That's not a good idea. I mean, this truly has happened before where there's been a buyer in the market that has been offers on other properties in the same office with other licensees. And guess what? That name is remembered and it gets around and they go, oh, that person wrote an offer on my house, and they backed out as soon as they did the inspection or as soon as they saw it. And that happened twice that they did that, and it got around, and guess what? It's kind of like the wolf in sheep clothing. Like, they didn't want to accept an offer. They were leery about accepting an offer from that person then. And maybe you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that probably. But that's the perfect house for them. They would have gone through with it. But it's human nature. I mean, people are going to hear that and they're going to take their risk benefit. If they have another offer that's just as good or better or just as good, then they may choose that one because of what they heard about what this buyer's been doing, in the marketplace. It gets around. This is a small community. So just be careful of, what you advise your buyers with, and don't make decisions for them. It's your buyer's choice. It's your seller's choice. But get the information, as much information as you can, and just present it, and then they have to make that decision. It's theirs to make. So, any other questions about that? No? Okay. So, the next form, number 8, kind of goes into what Terry was asking. So, if you currently have a listing in coming soon status, a part of this is the form you use for that. And you say, my seller is ready to move to active sooner than expected. So if that were the case, you click on that one and you say, move start showing to whatever date it is. You understand that we can put the form in for you as well here at our office, and we send it into MLS for you. So we can do that, or you can do it yourself. So if you need to put it in sooner, now, if you decide to put it in sooner, do not forget to go, if you put in your flyer that it's gonna go active, what do you call it? Like, it's gonna go active by a specific date and you change that date, make sure you go and you pull those flyers and you take the coming soon off and show people that it's active. And I would even send something out to all of them. Because what happens when you publish that date that it's coming soon, and it's going to be coming soon, at a specific date, people mark their calendars for that date. And then they're really upset if they find out you put it on early and then it pins that exact date. So, if you fill out the form, you're not in trouble for that. As long as you send the form in and you take the coming soon off and you fix your flyers, if you put that on your flyers, you're fine. You have the right to do that. But I would go the extra, because you might have people sitting and waiting that have been waiting. And you want to let them know so you get hopefully multiple offers from those people that have been waiting. Does that make sense? So before we go forward longer into this form, I'm going to give you guys like a 15-minute break. And then we'll come back and we'll do the rest. Sound good?
Got my good friend and hires and contract. Oh, I'm excited. I know I have to write a text message, but the listing hasn't seen it, never sent it. Calm down. And I don't, that's not my concern, because I work on my side, but my good nature is I actually met the seller because I was her neighbor. She's super sweet. I'm excited. She'll be moving on the contract this weekend, which I'm like, big on. Yeah. But her brother's like, I hope everything goes smoothly for her first.
Yeah, that's.
So we did get around it. So we have our home inspection tomorrow.
When is your other one on the market yet, or?
No, so that one's not coming till July. I need to go, they don't have orders yet, so they don't know when I'm leaving. They have their Darrow's month, which is like the month they have to be on. So we're forecasted for like early to mid-July. But I'm gonna call them later today so we can sit down and pick the actual date, so I know when to start my marketing.
When is this one supposed to close? That you have under contention?
They have a contingent is supposed to close July 11th, either 11th or 15th, whatever that Friday is.
So how do you close that one without selling your other one?
Our Montana home closes July 1st.
Okay.
We close July 15th.
Okay.
I thought they were closing June 10th, but that's the double.
Yeah.
So one contingency hopefully gets removed on the 8th. The realtor did assure me that their contingency is, it's family wanting to live by the end. There's no houses in this little town called Cascade. So they definitely want it, and they're gonna do everything they can. There's just no control that's out of it. I'm like, it's like throwing a Hail Mary. I hope everyone catches it.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
yeah,
that's
I
good for you
told-
because you wouldn't have been able to sign that.
Yeah, and I started explaining that to Zach, and it was funny. He's like, man, it's like, I am terrible as a seller. I'm like, yes, you are. I'm like, but it's okay. It'll all work out. He's like, I can't believe we have a house more under contract. I said, me either.
Yeah. You're lucky to know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I, the Valley's on Wasilla. It's not, and I know I can tell by the way he speaks and stuff. But when I called Sunday, he was like, he's like, yeah, I'm golfing. I'll pin it later tonight. I'm like, okay, cool. I even had to send the PSA back yesterday. I'm like, hey, I'm missing a date from your seller and I'm missing your signature. And then every now I send him
So he
something.
talks to send it to you now. This is fun.
Yeah, because we don't have to sign it yet, because they didn't counter either. They just accepted.
Nope. So you do not have to sign it and do not sign it. Yeah, absolutely not.
No. And that's what I was gonna ask you, if they do, because I'm always afraid every day when I check my email, it's gonna come, I'm like. And I don't know any reason why he would send it now. I imagine he has the same thought process, yeah.
That's gotta be a change, right? Texas to freezing cold all the way to north.
December,
that's crazy. Yeah, that's when I moved up in January, and I moved up from Rapid City, South Dakota, like 14 years ago. So I was like, it was cold there, and I came up here, and it was cold and dark. So yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
You guys, yeah.
I didn't know the darkness that much this year. But when I got here, I really wasn't
He
doing
came in on
real
the price,
estate
but
or
he said
anything.
he was
So I was out
Monday, so he
moving
said if you
during
just
the
have a
daylight
vacation
hours. I got
Sunday,
to every bit of daylight hours. I was out in.
You were able to get it, yeah,
we'll get
exactly. Yeah, because
extra
cabin
and then
fever
we
is
offer
like,
5,000,
you're
so
not doing
we're giving
anything.
5,000.
I've had friends that come up here
over this
and they'll do
price.
some kind of like
Only
a
ask
fishing
help
gig
my
or something
safety
sometime. They'll be
You know,
like, okay, I'm gonna save for the winter because
and
I
like
love
they
it
are
here.
my
And then months of dark and cold and cabin fever.
He's a little
If
too
you're not doing
lenient.
anything,
He's
you're
like,
going
if you want
crazy.
to go out there, I did all my stuff.
So I
I'm
did it.
like, no.
Yeah, that's what you gotta do. You gotta be out there.
Walking in the
Oh, yeah.
park first.
Oh, the trails are so good.
Everything I could do.
So, yeah.
So it didn't seem to
So
bother.
yeah, I was
Yeah,
like, I
absolutely.
didn't even want to tell him
Everybody
that
says
the
it's
offer had
hard, but
accepted because I was expecting
I
him
had
to
to.
send it. So I'm like, hey, good morning, guys, offer accepted. Man, they're gonna be so excited for 2 hours
Beautiful
until we get
place.
that
They're so
addition
peaceful.
comes back, and then they're gonna realize
We're at
that it
Texas.
never happened. And I was like,
So are you familiar with Texas at all?
Not much.
Okay, so about 45 minutes outside San Antonio.
Okay.
good to
Right
know.
up in the
Yeah,
hill
that's what I was
country.
like, okay, any day it's
Little
gonna come.
German
and we'll
town, I
know.
lived on
But
the
now I know
lake.
we don't have to things where it is.
We did kind of, the lake was about 20 minutes from New Braunfels, it was a small
And
German
he put
town.
it in pending contingent.
And
He
so
didn't
I kind
do
of worked that
active
whole area.
contingent like
That's
that
awesome.
other.
A little bit into San Antonio, a little bit into Austin. And then probably about the last year and a half, I moved about an hour north of Austin,
Yeah, and then
and selling
right.
ranches up.
I met a couple sellers actually. It's just virtual showings.
And now
a
you're here
lot
just selling big
faster
lots in
than
Alaska. 'Cause we
in
have a
person
lot of
ones.
big lots.
So, and I'm like, why don't I
Yeah.
go all the way to Side Town? So I can
Oh,
go to
Rebecca.
She's like, yeah, we're up on the door. So I think I know like your sellers.
How are you doing
They were
today?
all wonderful. They were all
Awesome.
like, yeah, it's premature early. I'm like, okay.
A 1-year-old, she's having trouble seeing off this one.
What's
And
that?
I'm so
I don't
glad you
know.
told me that story because that like
Yesterday
sticks
she
with
was
me.
on
I
for
will
about
definitely
like 2 or
remember
3
that story.
hours, like, so I woke up at 5, I had to be there at like 9. And then I was like, oh, okay.
Not to tell you,
Did as much as I could, just let her crash, went to sleep.
Do you play sleep music at all?
Yeah, I do. Not really during the night though, mostly during our naps. I ended up doing that today, though.
Okay. I do that. I started that a couple of years ago, and you get on YouTube, you can find deep sleep music and just turn it on real low and it plays for 8 or 9 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really have.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we should have like music.
Okay.
Just with fishing and sort of kind of a little howling.
Awesome.
For 2 days, it was like,
Never been out fishing
oh
for 3 days.
my gosh. I don't know if I'm so jealous.
Pretty good weather.
Yeah. I don't know what.
Seas are flat, 2
Yeah.
feet seas.
Never really had any issues.
That's what I hope
Last
for.
couple days.
Yeah, that's what I hope. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what do you guys say on the? Did you touch her
Yeah.
gums?
Well,
Is she drooling a lot?
I sleep in the
More
woods
than
sometimes
normal?
when my boys will sleep in the tent.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
We have friends that go down to all that.
That's really hard to follow along with.
Yeah. I'm kind of looking for an RV, so I don't know if. Maybe 28.
A friend of mine has an RV that's trashed.
It's right, you know, I don't need that.
That'd be bad.
I drove by this one yesterday, it was 2020, and I was trying to sign and then I saw. She's got a single cold or something. Maybe she's got
Oh, yeah,
allergies.
they could be expensive.
Wow. No, not for me. It's hard to say with them.
How big is that one?
I know, they could just talk and say what was wrong.
I feel like I'd ask, she like had asked for like milk or.
And so you can go offshore in that one?
Oh, yeah, we go.
How old is she?
She's just a one. So she'll like, she probably is. Yeah. Right after her birthday.
So what are boats like that running these days? I know it's, what does the car cost, but
She probably is just getting more teeth.
Probably.
A new one like that.
Joe? Yeah. Maybe help her sleep better.
and are those running inboard, outboard?
Inboard, ship. MCL drive.
Okay, yeah.
Still say that aloud to people.
Someone have these with them. It's just how I use it.
Well, I know, my dad, sent me to elementary school with, homemade cough syrup with bourbon and lemon juice and whatever it was, and, teacher was not amused. He got in trouble.
Do they confiscate from you?
So it's in a.
Call my dad, no, it was in like a medicine bottle.
Oh. That's funny.
But teacher sees me chugging and she's like, what are you doing?
Those are the 22-foot CR, but it's a boat or the center console, or wheel boat, but center console, but it's, no, just. To sit, high in the water, so it's real shallow. It's a V, but it's real shallow.
So 2 o'clock, still
a foot of water.
you're doing it.
Just a foot of water.
What's that?
2 o'clock.
Yes.
Not just that. A 150 on it.
Somebody
Uh,
says.
But it's made for shallow bay water. It's not-
I'd probably get them in the office now and just start forming that relationship and maybe say, this is kind of what's been happening, and walk through the house, see if there's any things they need to do to get ready for it.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
So it's like a jump
on the side.
Yeah. You need to work that.
I'm trying.
You could go in sort of about Hong Kong Bay down 4 or 6 miles. But, probably. We're combination of this. We'll see that.
They're transitioning out now. He's in very much. I have access.
That's
Are
good.
you trying to stay in the area when you retired? Yeah. Are you from here originally? Yeah. No, we're from New York. Oh, well, we're in New York. Okay, I have a buyer, my first buyer, she's in New York, she's in Brooklyn. She's been out here once, and we were, she was very, very specific that she needs 4 bedrooms and 3, just for just her and her mother. Oh, wow, yeah. So, she's great aside from that, but yeah, that's been my first and longest client so far. Yeah. We're
My
just
sister
waiting for
was
that one pop up,
Oh,
and
does
then
she?
it fell over. Yeah, I was there for 10 years. Okay. I got an assignment up here, but at the time it came in my partner's.
So that's it.
But I know it's getting out, so.
Okay.
Yeah. I was doing
Okay.
18
So
years.
it's made one
How do you like shop? I know the area is not so terrible, because we live in Columbia, so we're in the city, show up out there.
That was
Is it
pretty nice.
I
We drove that in
Charleston, I've
ourselves.
never went out to the beautiful, yeah.
So new, I've got a little over 45,000.
Yeah, okay, because
That
I
was
get her
several
on,
years
like,
ago.
at 16,
Uh,
16, 22.
I,
So pretty much.
had a problem with the transit
My friend,
traffic
her
laws.
and her husband are out there, and he
And
was
so
away
they
to bring
built
them
this
out there,
brand new
and
boat,
this
and
poor
just
girl,
moved
like, he's
everything over
literally
to
gone
it.
all the time. We were there in their mouth, we were there,
So the boat is the motors and motors.
Where you use that?
yeah.
So
You probably know, I
I
don't know
use
what,
one.
Scotland,
Compass,
probably
all
Scotland,
over the
he's
lakes,
the main painter out there.
so
But yeah, his girl,
Cocaine,
his wife
I
is
ran
like,
a lot of
she came home to Vandenberg at my
I ran
base
a
while
lot
he's
of
gone.
Canyon.
He's
I
always
lived
gone,
on
I swear
Canyon
she's
Lake,
and he's a main painter
right
at
outside
Charlotte.
New
He's never
Braunfels,
home.
between
Yeah,
San
he's
Antonio and Austin. So I lived on that.
But yeah, so, we came
Well,
here on
that's
this
just
holiday
in the
for,
water.
Central City.
Just off
We
the
bought
same
it
water.
as
Yeah.
and then we last year.
So, and I mean, protection down there, codes, focus and everything, we have.
Literally zero. Stitch Fix has to save my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, you're doing great, Gina.
Thanks,
Got you, girl. I kept trying to give you the nods. Keep it up, girl.
Which is great, because I know I will be here for 5 years again. That's what I love about being, yeah.
I know, I was in Italy and I we were at the school dog park. I had 500. And we were really chasing the dog like crazy. I had to
Are
do
you credit? I mean, so much. So yeah, so kind of awesome.
The thing is, yeah, I think you're right. There's no understanding of like, whatever is on the areas and how you think, I don't get Mexican friendship.
One thing that Lowe's was a
Really makes you realize it's an open
So I'm
lot of places in Europe, and well, like to Hungary, you go there, like, oh, well, Hungary is pretty close. I can never figure out why. Yeah, that's exactly.
Oh, no, I got my license, so I had an interview like here.
Sure, we're a
Last week ago, and I did it all the and they said if I I left for 10 days. I've been doing all these. I have friends that are there. So I was gonna go back to Chicago, and I lived in. Oh yeah, it's a couple of jump roads. You know, if you're from planes, it's just nothing. And then you have Chicago, which is just a massive regional. And it was great, but it was hot. And I also used Chicago as and for something that's last year, people went to that. Oh god, it was pouring down. And I remember like I brought what I wear here, and so like I had t-shirts and navy pair of shorts, and it was so much. I had to go back to my live pants, you know, like I wear in Egypt with like a tank top. Yeah, pretty much. It was great. Yeah, but I lived in Bridgeport, which is it's kind of Chinatown, and Bridgeport, which is kind of like the Italian American, which you see for
Now that's so exciting.
Yeah, it was cool. And I was able to go back to like multiple restaurants in Chinatown, and Subway, go to but it was too much. Of course, that's the reason why I came back. Like so I'm originally like in the industry, so there's like a big tourist. So when I was there, I was doing a stage for it's like a
Okay, everybody. Back to class. Okay, so we're back to like Form 8. So this one we'll go back and kind of finish this form here. So we kind of talked about if the seller's ready to move into active status a little bit quicker, you need to fill out this top part, 5 days. I understand this can only be done one time. Okay, so very, very important. So the longest you can be in coming soon is 20 days. 15 with a one-time 5-day extension. So if your client is, if you have to be really strict with them, because what you have to do next is not so fun, and they don't like it. So if it goes past the 20 days, you have to withdraw your listing. So there's no more leniency from there. So anything past, 20 days, you have to withdraw the listing.
When you withdraw it, is that 6-month rule apply?
No,
or
it's
is it
withdrawal is temporary. Canceling is a different, we're gonna kind of go over that form next, but withdrawing is for temporary use. I think it says like 30 days. Yeah, 30-day limit. So when you see a withdrawn listing in MLS, that means that it should be going back active within 30 days. So you don't, we tell you sometimes, maybe you should call expired listing to see if people want to relist. Withdrawn, probably not, because they still have a listing with the licensee. They're just withdrawing it temporarily for one reason or another. We saw a lot of withdrawals with COVID. Probably still will see that with COVID because you can't show the home during that time. Sometimes people will just block it in showing time and put in the confidential remarks. We have someone, not able to show for 1 reason, but MLS doesn't like that. MLS, if you have the home listed actively in MLS, we are not allowing any showings for this block of time. I mean, like days time. You can say showings are only available, between 12 and 4, Monday through Friday. That's okay. You can do, we need 24-hour notice because we have tenants, so you can do that. But you can't, if you aren't going to be able to show it for days, it needs to be withdrawn. And you can withdraw it for up to 30 days. It can, but not past 30 days.
so active that they say no showing?
That's a problem.
Okay.
I mean, that's something we would report to MLS.
Yeah.
Because that's not okay.
Okay.
But again, there's a lot of people who don't pay attention to the rules, don't know the rules, don't look it up, don't get taught. And so then they just do whatever their seller tells them to do. And MLS doesn't, they don't go through every single listing in MLS and read every single listing and know if they've written in there no showing. So the only way they know is if one of you guys call them. And you should. If you see in there that it's available, it's showing active, and they're saying no showings, for 7 days, that's the problem. Yes.
We had this come up a few weeks back because I asked about it. It was no scheduled showings. You can only come to these designated open houses. Is that allowed? Yeah,
I think MLS, I think MLS would have a problem with that, don't you, Sherry?
I think wasn't that a property though that was tenant occupied?
It may have been. I just remember it's been active for like a week and it's like no showings. You can only view during these 3 open houses and that's it.
I believe if it was the same one I saw, it was a tenant occupied property. So they just did it in 3 blocks so that the tenant allowed them to do.
Okay.
I think that's probably
So
a little
that's-
bit different.
I would agree that probably is a little different because you're not saying no showings at all. You have a tenant in there. You have to acknowledge them. It depends on how that lease is written. I mean, typically most leases say they can be shown within 24-hour notice. But if they're making it impossible, they say, I'm not going to leave the house. I'm going to have my pit bull with me sitting on my couch. Come, I think it's more them saying, I'm not showing it for 7 days because, encouraging people to call them or, it's a different situation. A tenant occupied, that type of thing is going to be a little bit different.
Well, didn't Billy have that weird property that he had to
did.
do something like that with?
Yeah, he had to do showings where he had to be at the showing, so you have to schedule it with him, and there were some funky. So, I mean, sometimes there's little funky things that you have to do.
A lockbox there.
Correct, no lockbox. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but obviously those are hard to get sold too.
Yeah.
Very hard. Yes.
I had someone message me last night about that property. This is one for, we're under contract still.
Yeah.
We still get people trying to call and put offers on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So just if you read down, says you can extend for 5 days. My seller needs more time. Please put my listing in withdrawal status. My seller requires more than the days remaining and coming soon, even with the 5-day extension. Note, must be submitted 2 days prior to current start showing date. So you have to plan for this. It needs to be at least 2 days before the start showing date that you send this in, that you're gonna withdraw. And then you have to then put it in delayed marketing status, right? Because you're delaying the marketing. So then you have to attach the required delayed marketing, and then you realize that no marketing or showing are allowed. So you have to remove the signage, remove all your media, your marketing, your media, all that when you do that. Because remember, you were in coming soon where you could market it, and you extended it 5 days in your coming soon where you still can market it. But then you've gone your 20 days, they're still not ready to go back to delayed marketing, which you aren't allowed to market it or show it. So then you've got to remove all of your marketing and until you're able to put it back either in coming soon again or be active again.
So withdrawn, you have to take the sign down?
Yes, you do.
Oh, okay.
So if you know you're coming back active, can you just pull the sign off the post and leave the post there and just rehang the sign?
Yeah, I think so. If it's down in the, just take it off, put it in the garage, make sure you take all your media down, Facebook, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, because a post isn't advertising, as long as there's nothing in there that says just a white post sitting there, that's fine. It's not easy to do, but you can. I mean, those hooks, like, it's not easy.
But the wind will blow it over.
I
mean, you're trying to get it undone and you can't, except for, the wind
Oh,
blowing
yeah,
off
yeah,
the hook.
But it's not super easy. I think they use pliers or something to curl them when they put that thing up. I mean, you probably are handy enough to do, that's not a problem, but not everybody. It's not as easy as like unhooking the sign and walking away. But you could just let the office know, we'll remove the sign, and then we'll take it back when the time comes. Questions?
Can you repeat that 2-day thing you said?
2 days.
You said something about 2 days, this form has to
Yes.
be turned in?
Yes, so 2 days before your start showing date, and it's written right on this form, Bailey. It's right.
You are. Oh, here it goes now, but.
Yeah.
Fine.
So, yeah, it's on here for you to review.
And that says business days.
Yes.
So that would be Monday
Yes,
through Friday.
correct.
Yeah, so that would, if you had it on Saturday was your second day, so you need to be careful with dates.
Very good point. So you would have to do it on Wednesday, 2 days, Thursday, Friday, because Saturday was supposed to go live, but that's not a business day.
Right.
So this is in the case when it's incoming soon, not an
Correct.
active going to withdrawn.
Yes.
Got it.
Well,
Okay.
even if you withdraw a listing and it's no longer on the market in MLS, the signage has to come out.
But the 2-day thing, I guess with COVID is the thing, obviously the person's, you gotta withdraw right away, you can't allow showings anymore, so doing that 2-day time period really isn't gonna really apply?
Correct.
Okay. This
Yeah.
is just for.
This is for coming soon.
Got it, okay,
Yeah. Because you should know 2 days prior you're not gonna be ready.
great, and yeah,
You should know. Some people don't, but you should. They promise, I promise it'll be ready, you go there and it's not ready. Maybe the seller thinks it's ready and you're like, no, I'm not ready. So I can see where it'd be hard sometimes for 2 days, but, and that might be something that they might be lenient if they need a situation, but, they're asking for 2 days. So try to adhere to their rules. Anything you want to add to that, Sherry? Okay, so let's go to Form 9, which is the Flex Status Change Input Sheet. So this needs to be filled out anytime anything changes in your listing. Okay, so you change the list price. You need to put what the new list price is on here, and you send that into MLS or to the front desk. We always want the backup information from this. You always want to have it's a place here for the seller to sign. So your seller needs to sign the sheet. At a bare minimum, if your seller doesn't sign this sheet, we need an email from them asking them to reduce the price or increase the price or whatever they're going to do that you would attach to this form. So you want to make sure, we do not want you ever changing pricing, changing anything like that without documentation from your seller. We need that documentation from them. We really want this form signed. We should still, this is in Flex, easy to do. Did you sign it to them? Have them sign it. Then you've got what you need, goes to MLS or front desk sends to MLS, however you want to do it, and then you get it done.
You guys send
Because
it to MLS?
you can change it yourself. If you have inputs, if you have the ability to input your own listings, you can change it yourself. So you don't have to send the listing to MLS every time you list a property. You just input it yourself. But you need to have it back for backup in case it's ever asked for it. Because sometimes they ask for it. But if you don't input your own listings, then you're gonna need the form filled. I mean, you still need the form filled out no matter what, and this goes into your records, but if you do your own inputting, then you don't have to send it to MLS. You just try to change it yourself.
I never get the form filled out, but I will now.
Okay, good. It's good to get it filled out, but I'm sure you get an email or something from your client asking you. to-
Generally, yes, but I mean, even when I go unpend it, I just go unpend it. I don't. I mean, we have a signed contract.
Yeah,
right?
pending, I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, okay, but you're saying mostly just the list price is probably
Yeah,
a big deal.
list price, extend expiration,
Cancel the listing.
cancel the listing, withdraw the listing. Those you're gonna need that information. So, extend expiration date. So this is something that I think a lot of people, you forget. Well, I want to go a couple things for the extend the listing. So if you have a listing agreement and say it expires on May 10th, but it's under contract to close on June 10th, do you need to extend your listing?
You should.
Yes.
You should. Do you have to?
No.
No. So what happens if you do and you don't? So what happens if you don't extend it and you DFT?
If your contract falls through,
You don't have a listing to relist it. If you do extend it and your deal falls through, put it back on the market, right? So absolutely, you should. Mainly for that reason. Because if the DFTs and the seller, it gives the seller, if it's already expired, it gives the seller the opportunity to list with somebody else because maybe they were happy with you or something. Which nobody in this room, your client's not gonna be happy with you, of course. But you should always stay in contract. We talk about that all the time. Always stay in contract. So just extend it, make sure it's never a problem. What you don't want to happen is you have an expired listing and you have a DFT and you re-put it in MLS as an active listing when you do not have a, that's bad. So that means you don't get paid and neither does the other licensee. And then you're trying to sell a house you don't have permission to. Very bad. Don't want to do that. So if you put it in SkySlope tells you it's expired. It will tell you right there in big red letters expired. I think you also get a message from MLS when it's about to expire. So you can look it up there. But just keep track of that and don't let your listings expire. And if they do, extend them. I mean, I always just make really long listings. So just do like a year listing. And I always tell my clients, for any reason, you decide that we didn't get it sold in the time frame you wanted. You decide you don't want to list it anymore. You want to cancel the listing. You just tell me, I'll cancel it. No problem. I've done that my whole career. I didn't want to sell. And mainly because it was a investment property and then the rentals were kind of going up now. No, maybe I will keep it as a investment property. But on the most part, if they're wanting to sell it, they sell it. But you always want to give them that option. Because the bottom line, you think about it, if they came to you, even if you had a long listing and they came to you and they said, maybe you guys just aren't seeing eye to eye, or maybe they have different circumstances. They were supposed to move and then they're not moving. They found a job, in town, so they're staying. If they came to ask you if they could cancel it because now they don't want to move, I mean, are you going to tell them no? You're going to say, of course, that's totally fine. Your life has changed, not a problem. Because you want to keep them as a client for referrals and for, selling their property later on. So you're going to let them out anyway. So why not just tell them that up front? And then make it long, so then you don't have to worry about it expiring. Just a business practice I use. But you guys can do whatever you want. Just make sure you extend it if it is short. There are people out there that say, I want to do a 4-month listing, and that's all I want to do. And you kind of get stuck with that. So you just get it sold, and sometimes that happens. And if it does, just make sure you extend it past the closing date. Any questions about that? Back on the market. So I should have brought a sales report here. Let me go grab. Well, let's do that on Monday. So back on the market, that's pretty sufficient. You have a DFT. The deal falls through. You always want to have a termination agreement that goes along with that. The only time you don't need a termination agreement when a deal falls through is if the buyer or the contract pass away. The contract is automatically null and void. Period. Yes.
What if it's married buyers and only one married? Does the other buyer still impact, or is that applicable in a marriage?
Dead is, and when someone dies, it's dead. Because you don't know, it's got to go through probate, there's a will, there's, that person can't talk for the other person. And I guess if it's in a title where it says it automatically goes to the other person no matter what, then possibly, but typically it's dead if someone dies. And you would rewrite it if that other person was able to sell it just on their own and that was determined, then they can rewrite it. But obviously the person that's dead can't sign any more documents. They can't, that person can't work on behalf of them until they're designated to work on behalf of them. So when someone dies in the contract.
If the other party has a power of attorney, that power of attorney ceases upon death, correct?
Correct.
So even that wouldn't work. Okay.
Nope. So, yeah, that's just the way it goes. And I know, we've had situations where people have come and they says, well, the heirs still want to sell it. Okay, well, once, it's through probate and they've been designated as the personal representative, then they can then sell it at that point, but they can't sell it after that. You just don't have a deal anymore. But you don't need a termination for that. It just is done. Let's see. Remove contingency. So add or remove contingency. Any accepted offer contingent on the sale of another property or a short sale may be reported as contingent until such offer becomes expired, pending, sold, or canceled. Using this contingency enables it to remain in active status until the status update is reported. So date contingent, you put it in there. Sale depends on reason for contingency, must be specified. This information is for display in the confidential remarks of the listing. And then the next, of course, pending listing is a pending listing. Sometimes people put it in pending subject to inspection, pending subject to financing. We don't see that often anymore. Most of the time they just put it in as pending. Withdrawal, we talked about a limit. Cancel listing is final. No back on the market allowed. This is used to permanently remove a listing from the market. Permanently. So do not use that if you're planning on putting it back on the market. Closed listing, of course, you put in the sales price and the date closed, selling licensee. Make sure that a lot of times people don't. We also want to know like the concessions that are paid. Like if they pay closing costs, and then the type of financing is really important. that really helps when you're pulling up comps and you're comparing properties. You could see closing costs that were paid by the seller, by the buyer, and that way when you're doing comps and you see, okay, 4 properties have sold in a CMA, and of those 4 properties, each one of them paid one paid 5,000 closing costs, one paid 10,000 closing costs. What does that do to the value of the property? Yeah, it lowers it. So it may look like it sold for this price, but their net value was 3,000 less, 5,000 less, 10,000 less. So really, that's what it sold for. So you have to take that into consideration when you're doing a market analysis for someone, and let the use that in your comparable analysis. So that's really important to do and pay attention to that. When we get the HUD that comes in from the office from your commission, we look on the HUD to see if closing costs were paid by the seller, and we will put it in MLS if we can find that. And sometimes you'll get a call and you'll say, was closing costs paid or what kind of financing, because it's not written, but it's typically always on the contract. So, and we try to figure out sometimes, oh, maybe it was FHA because it was 3% down. When they get the HUD and they do your commission checks when they come in. But if you do these forms and you send them in, that's helpful as well. If you put them in Flex. Any questions about this? So the next one, I wasn't sure I'd get to, but it looks like I'm going to. The for sale by owner commission agreement. So when would you use that? Okay.
When you find a for sale by owner house for your buyer and you go in and negotiate on your buyer's behalf.
Absolutely.
Before you go into the house.
Before you take your buyer into the house.
Yeah.
Very important factor. If your clients call you and they said, oh, I just met these people, I just went and looked at their house, I really like it, but I want to use you. And they've already talked to the seller, they've already walked through the house. And you go in, you say, you call the seller, you go, I want you to pay me a commission. You think that's easier or harder to negotiate? Harder. Maybe a little harder. So I would definitely, those are conversations you have with your buyer prior to when you start working with them. You tell them, I can help you for sale by owners, I can help you with people that you see signs in the yard, I can help you find a property in a specific neighborhood by sending out postcards or letters to that neighborhood. If you really want to live in a specific area. So I'm the person to help you find a house no matter what. You're going to look online, you're going to find homes that way. But if you find a home that you want to look at, contact me to negotiate for you entry into that home. Don't go into any homes without me, except for an open house. And when you do go to the open house, you take these. And I always show them water repellent, and they start laughing. But so when you go to an open house, you just give them my card, and they'll leave you alone. And then you can just walk through the house, and you can look at it and all that. And so it's kind of funny, but it's 100% true. And I say when you run out, you take another stack and you just keep them in your car. And then when you go to open houses, you can just look at your leisure and not be bothered. Because if we are doing an open house, we do an open house, someone walks in and they say, hey, I'm working with Christy. Okay, great. I love Christy. She's a great realtor. I know her really well. We've done deals together. Look around, see what you like. And that's what the response is. And so, and that realtor might call Christy later and say, hey, your client came into my house. What did they think about it? So it's a good thing to do that for a few reasons. But that's what I do as a and steal your client from you. So it's all about the conversations that you have with them up front. And then you tell them if you see an open house, or not open house, but for sale by owner, just give me the information on the sign. I'll contact them, negotiate the commission. And that way they pay the commission. You don't have to pay the commission, or we negotiate it into the price. And then we'll go look at it together. And then if they say, I'm only going to pay $1, then you tell them, they said they're only going to pay me $1. You just kind of make make light of it, but it allows you to be able to negotiate and them to know you're there for them and you can help them with any transaction. But the for sale by owner agreement is an agreement that you need to get signed by the seller prior to you going into the house. You also need the AREC. So make sure you have the AREC that says you're representing the buyer, may assist the seller, and then you can fill this out. And on here, it just says entered between the owner and Jack White and you as the licensee. The owner's the owner of the property, and you just put the property address in there. The owner's endeavored to sell the property without the assistance of a real estate licensee. However, licensee has a client to whom they would like to show the property. If the owner sells the property to the licensee's client, owner has agreed to pay the licensee to. If the owner enters into a contract to sell the property to their client, at any time within 1 year from the date of them signing the agreement, owner shall pay the commission to the licensee through the broker at closing. So if they don't write a contract at that moment, and then they write a contract with that client 2 months later, they have to pay you a commission. They owe you a commission.
So you don't put the client's name on this form anymore?
No, they sign, yes, you do put their name on the form.
Where?
I know you do. Well, I should say that. You know it's that person, I think I would write them on there. I think I've written them on there before. I swear it doesn't have it on there. I could swear I did have it on there. For one, it goes with the contract. So if you're connected to that client, so
The
that's
AREC
really-
goes with it, so the
and the
AREC
AREC goes with it that has their name on it too. But I think I've written their name like on the bottom.
The thing is, you'd be a lot more likely to get a homeowner or sub owner to sign this if you said it's only for this one client and here's their name.
Yeah.
Doesn't deal with anybody else.
And I think that's what I've done in the past too, because I tell them that and then I put their name on it and then I go show it. But I agree, this form probably should be redone and have their name on it. Has it ever had a name on it, Sherry, you remember? No?
By not having the name on it, though, it allows you to have more than one client.
To show it to? That's true. That's true. That's probably why it was done that way.
And if you give them a copy of the AREC, you need to have a copy of the AREC.
Correct.
From the seller, not showing the contract of the AREC.
Right.
That was kind of confusing because the company with the AREC.
Yes, because you're gonna have the AREC, you're not gonna give them the AREC, that's true, you're gonna give the AREC from the buyer. You're gonna have the AREC from them, just for them, saying represent the buyer, but don't have the buyer's name on there. It's just gonna have the seller's name.
Do you do that before showing, or is that when you write a contract with the seller with the AREC?
No, because you're talking to them about real estate, you have to have an
Got it.
AREC before you walk in the door.
Got it, okay.
So you have the AREC saying represent the buyer, you have this form. And if you want to put their name, you can, but again, if you think you'll show it to other clients, maybe you don't put a name on there. And then you call them back again and say, hey, I have another client that would like to see it. Is that okay? We still have this agreement. Is it acceptable? And
So do you have to have a buyer's rep agreement for it to be an actual client? Or if you're just working with them, they're a client?
no, you don't have to have a buyer's rep agreement ever.
Okay.
It's your personal business practice if you want to use one or not.
Okay.
Unless you have a buyer representative agreement.
It's really tough though if the people that are only willing to pay $1 say, well, we will discuss it when you bring us an offer, but then we pay the commission. And that makes it really challenging.
Absolutely. And then at that point, what I would do is you pull comps on the property. And if the property is priced, because essentially almost every comp that you see is going to have a commission built into it, right? And if this one is the same price as what everybody else is paid with a commission built in, and theirs doesn't have a commission, then you can kind of talk to your buyer about this and say, hey, this is really what's happening. And it's their choice to what they want to do. But it is very difficult. And then at that point, you just hope and pray they don't like it.
Have you ever collected a commission from the buyer and tell your buyer?
Be done, the buyer can pay the commission themselves, or if there's room and you think you can get it appraised, you can build it into the price and then you ask the seller to pay the commission. So it comes out of the proceeds, but it's built into the price, added to the price. And that's typically how for sale by owners are done. But if they already have, if it's already like top of the market and there's no room to add commission and they're already pricing it with commission in it, then that's where it becomes very, very challenging. But your buyer has to decide, do you want to pay 3% more, commission, 3% more, 6% more than everybody else is paying?
You all's
Maybe they don't want
experience, how often do you deal with this?
I haven't dealt with it a lot. I had one deal where they did have it priced a little bit lower than market value, and we added it in, and it worked fine.
But this isn't like a yearly thing, like if you're.
It just depends, and I think it's probably happening more now because it's very hard to find home, inventory. So people are going out searching for inventory, and
sellers know the market's so hot that they're just trying to sell it themselves. also.
correct. So there's some of that going on. Sherry, how many have you done?
A handful, but
Yeah,
it's getting very challenging.
yeah, yeah. Agree.
Purchase agreement has commission in it.
The purchase agreement does not have it in, but it's linked to the listing that's an MLS that has what the commission is. Because you put the commission is offered. And you always want to be very careful about that and read it before you show the house, because some of them do say $1, and it's not 1%, it's a dollar sign. If it's 1.00, it means $1. And I don't know about you guys, but I do not work for $1.
And neither does your daughter.
No, she does not.
So you have any recourse and you show the property and the buyer really wants it, and the owner refuses to budge from the dollar or whatever?
Well, that's where you don't show it. You don't show it without an agreement that says that. And if you do show it without an agreement, like Sherry says, sometimes it's very difficult because you have a client you work with for a while. They say, well, I don't know, I'm gonna pay, it depends on what the offer is. Then you're taking a risk there. So you have to decide if you want to take that risk, try to negotiate something with the buyer,
A little uncomfortable too.
It is, absolutely. But, the buyer needs to understand that essentially the seller is getting, the benefit of that net proceeds of a commission because of what they have it priced for right now. And then they're asking somebody else to, pay a commission on top of it to get help or to help them.
I'll expect you to go through to work for free for both sides.
Yeah, that's why working by referral is very helpful because your clients like you and appreciate you on the most part. A lot of them do, a lot more than people you get from cold calls that you don't have a relationship with. I mean, they don't want you to work for free. They don't go to work 40 hours a week and expect to not get a paycheck. And they don't expect you to do that either. And so, if you kind of lay that out, they understand that. And they understand worth is absolutely worth it. So you just try to get creative in a way of trying to do it. And what you could do is you could try to build it into the price. If it doesn't come in the price, you're gonna have to reduce the price. See if you can make it work that way. How would you do it typically, Sherry?
I've had it when they've split it.
Yeah.
The buyer pays a portion, the seller pays a portion.
Mhm.
Because it's a property that they particular buyer living with.
Mhm.
I try not to show the $1 listings, but unfortunately, they're out there for all buyers to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wonder how often that actually happens. Like, did they actually go through and then it's $1,
I don't know. I mean, have you? No. I don't know many people that actually do that. I think you always negotiate something, able to negotiate something, because just people aren't gonna do it.
What's the lowest you've ever had on CA or somebody else's percentage? 1%, 2%, I know 2.5 is very common.
2.5 is common now, unfortunately, but I don't know, I mean, like, I've done consultation fees for people for a certain flat fee, depending on what you're doing for them. But anything under what we typically charge for our brokerage, you have to get approval from the brokerage. So just don't forget that as well.
So like rather than getting a commission, if you are gonna consult somebody and get money for it, we'd have to get permission from you to do so.
We're not gonna ever, keep you from getting paid. Certain situations that you're doing, like you're doing a broker's opinion of value, you're not gonna get, usually those are like $500 or somewhere in there, So there's certain things that you do that are less. You show a rental property, they'll show an MLS, they'll pay $100. You don't need to get permission for that because it's listed in MLS and it shows what the payment's gonna be to do that if you decide to do that, so.
I had one where the person who owned it had a renter in it, the renter was buying it, they had all the stuff worked out between them. And so I just charged, I didn't do anything else, I didn't market it, I didn't put it in MLS, I didn't do anything but fill out a contract for them, that was a set dollar amount.
The one thing you have to be careful of, always remember, is when you're filling out a contract for someone, you're doing that, you're taking on all that liability for a very low amount of money. So you have to always think about that. So just keep that in mind, that you still have the liability. And the less you get paid, your liability is higher. And that, the money for the liability is, lower or higher, yeah, it becomes maybe sometimes not worth it. So, yes.
I had a situation like that a couple of years ago where the tenant, it was a duplex, the tenant wanted to buy it. And seller was a great friend of mine. So instead of him paying 6%, I said, well, I will advise the tenant and represent you, we do it for 4%. So I actually got more money.
Yeah.
It seemed like a lot more work, but
yeah.
I took care of both sides.
That's great.
And
we will allow you to do that. In that kind of a situation, we'll definitely allow you to do that. And, but, if you're doing the both sides of it, you should get more than just the 3% because you are doing the work of two. But you always want to, like for me, I always want to volunteer to do both sides of it because I don't want to put that in the seller's hands to do when it's for seller because they don't know what to do. And if you can just take control and just do the whole thing, it's going to go smooth and it'll all get done. But when you tell them you have to order a resale, you have to order titles, like no, just it's much easier to do it yourself and it gets done.
On the other side, remember a couple months back when we met that gentleman in the open house? He had a realtor he was working with that he wasn't particularly $400. You remember that?
Right.
So is that something that her broker would have had to sign off on?
Not my broker, but his broker.
Yeah.
Buyers.
It depends on what their office policy is.
Yeah, because she said, well, why don't you just, fire her and work with someone else? He's like, I can't, because I don't use her, I have to pay her $400.
Mm-hmm.
And
strange.
Yeah.
And
I would imagine the broker probably had no idea that was happening. I guess, but
yeah.
He wanted out of it so badly. He was so disappointed. He was just
I
going
mean,
from
why-
open house to open house.
why
by
wouldn't
himself.
he just go to the broker and talk to them about it?
I told him that would be the best course. Yeah. And I said, I don't even know the person's name, just go right to their broker and talk to them directly. Who knows what he did,
Yeah.
And ever since she told me that story, like I always tell my buyers, like regardless if you're working with me or anyone else, as a buyer, unless it's a FSBO, you should not be paying your realtors. So be careful when the buyer revenue.
Agree to pay him.
Yeah, if they choose to work with the buyer's rep agreement is very specific. If they write an offer on a property that you've shown them and they, with another realtor, they're gonna have to pay you a commission. So that's why you do a buyer's rep, so they don't go use somebody else and buy a property. But there's not typically a fee to not work with them. But the buyer's rep agreement has responsibilities on both sides. It's got responsibilities for the licensee, what they're gonna do, and it's got responsibilities for the buyer. So if you're not gonna adhere to the responsibilities that you're signing in the buyer's rep agreement as well as the realtor or licensee, then you better not sign it, because they can hold you to it, and you could be breach of contract as well if you don't do what it says in there. We'll go through one of those forms another time. I know Kathy Fernandez is a great, but I think we're right at 12, so Hopefully you guys got a lot out of that and feel a little bit better. Please turn in your forms, these forms. I would like to get all these back so I can, if you have filled it out yet, take a minute to fill them out. So I want to know where you are, what you know, all that good stuff.
Thank you, Jiva.
You are welcome. Did you guys learn something?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yes? Good.
Sure did.
So I started filling it out. Sorry.
Comment.
Yes.